Good evening. Tonight, we take a closer look at one of the most talked about finishes in recent NASCAR history, the Daytona 500. What unfolded in the final moments of this year's race was more than a dramatic conclusion to motorsport's most prestigious event. It was a sequence of collisions, controversy, and raw emotion that has since sparked a wide-ranging conversation inside the NASCAR garage about the state of the sport itself. From a winner who was uncertain he had actually won, to drivers openly expressing frustration with both the on-track action and the current technical regulations, the Daytona 500 this year left an unmistakable mark on the racing community, one that extends well beyond the checkered flag. The Daytona 500 has long been regarded as the signature event of the NASCAR Cup Series season. It is the race that fans anticipate throughout the off-season, the one that carries the most prestige, the most history, and the most weight in the sports calendar year. This year's edition delivered all of the spectacle that race fans have come to expect from the event, but it also delivered something else entirely. It delivered a finish so chaotic, so layered with incident, and so contested in its aftermath that many within the garage began raising questions not just about individual decisions made on the final lap, but about the broader direction of NASCAR racing at the superspeedway level. To understand the full scope of what happened, it is important to walk through the events of that final lap carefully and precisely. Coming to the white flag, signaling the final lap of the race, it was Carson Hocevar who held the lead. He had control of the race at that point. However, Hocevar was then turned into the wall. No immediate caution flag was displayed. The field continued racing at full speed. Off turn 4, Chase Elliott surged forward and moved into the lead. For a brief moment, it appeared that Elliott was on the verge of capturing one of the most significant victories of his career at the most significant race of the NASCAR season. That moment, however, did not last. Elliott was then involved in a wreck. Behind him, Riley Herbst threw a blocking move. Brad Keselowski had built what was described as a massive run, a significant charge toward the front of the field. What followed was widespread contact. Multiple cars were involved. Metal folded, vehicles made contact with one another and with the wall. Joey Logano crossed the start-finish line going backwards. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was scraping the wall as he crossed. Brad Keselowski, with significant front-end damage to his car, managed to navigate through the smoke and debris to finish fifth. It was by any standard of description a chaotic and destructive conclusion to the biggest race of the NASCAR year. Through all of that wreckage, one car crossed the finish line first, the car driven by Tyler Reddick. But in a detail that speaks directly to how uncertain and disorienting that finish was, Reddick himself was not sure he had won. He stated openly after the race that he did not know if he had crossed the finish line before or after the caution lights were illuminated. In other words, the man who had just potentially won the Daytona 500 was hesitant to celebrate because he was genuinely uncertain whether the victory would be confirmed or taken away, pending a review of the sequence of events at the finish line. That moment of uncertainty from the race's own winner captures, perhaps more clearly than anything else, just how disorganized and unprecedented the conclusion of this race had become. Tyler Reddick's path to this moment carries significant personal weight. Reddick grew up in California and, by his own account, never missed a Daytona 500 broadcast during his childhood. He described watching the race with his family year after year, dreaming of one day competing at Daytona. He recalled the experience of testing an ARCA car at the Daytona International Speedway for the first time and describing it as surreal. That sense of awe and reverence for the event and the facility stayed with him as he climbed through the ranks of professional racing. Now a Cup Series driver competing for the team co-owned by Michael Jordan, Reddick entered this season carrying the expectations that come with racing for a high-profile organization. Expectations that include winning races and competing at the front of the field consistently. By his own admission, the previous season had been difficult. Reddick went without a win, endured a period of struggle, and described the experience of looking inward as a team, dealing with external pressure and internal doubt. Adding to the weight of that period, Reddick also shared that his newborn son had been dealing with health issues during that time. He drew a direct comparison between the emotions he experienced winning the Daytona 500 and the emotions he felt when he won the pole position at the Charlotte Roval, a race weekend during which his son had been hospitalized. Before this year's Daytona 500, Reddick shared that his son had asked him directly whether he was finally going to win the race. That question, coming from his child, added yet another layer of personal significance to what was already the highest-stakes event on the NASCAR schedule. The reaction from other drivers involved in the final lap incident was swift and candid. Chase Elliott, who had led the race coming out of turn 4 on the final lap, did not conceal his frustration in his post-race comments. Elliott stated plainly that his team had been leading the Daytona 500 off turn 4 coming to the checkered flag and had not won the race, and left the implication of that statement to speak for itself. Brad Keselowski was more direct in his criticism. He called the blocking move from the number 35 car one of the most ill-advised actions he had witnessed on a racetrack, stating that the move eliminated multiple competitors, including himself, for what he viewed as no justifiable reason. Keselowski expressed his belief that he had built a run significant enough to challenge for the win, or at the very least contend for position, and that the opportunity was eliminated by what he characterized as a desperate and unnecessary maneuver. Riley Herbst, the driver of the number 35 car and the one whose blocking move drew that criticism, offered his own account of the events. Herbst stated that he had chosen his lane, that he had been pushed, and that he was doing what any competitor would do in that moment, trying to win the race. Adding to the complexity of the debate, Tyler Reddick himself acknowledged that Herbst had played a role in the outcome of the race. Reddick stated that he does not win the Daytona 500 without what Herbst did, and that in his view, Herbst executed exactly what was in his own best interest in that moment. The competing accounts from these drivers set the stage for a much broader discussion, one that goes beyond a single blocking move on a single lap and extends into the very structure of how NASCAR racing unfolds at superspeedway tracks under the current technical package. That discussion and the voices from inside the garage who are driving it forms the core of what makes this year's Daytona 500 a significant moment, not just as a race result, but as a reflection of where the sport stands today. When we return, we will take a detailed look at the on-track dynamics that defined this year's race, the fuel management strategies, the pack racing environment, and the specific characteristics of the next-gen car that drivers and team owners say are reshaping the nature of superspeedway competition in NASCAR. Stay with us.